Marvin from Portland Music Company here, and today I'm going to talk to you about strings. I'm going to go over some of the frequently asked questions when it comes to choosing different sets of strings. To start, guitar strings of most acoustic and electric varieties are measured in gauges, which is a term used to reference the size of the string in hundredths of an inch. For most common electric guitars, you would typically use a 9-gauge set or perhaps a 10-gauge set. This is referring to the sizes of the individual strings in reference to the smallest string. A 9-gauge set is often a set of strings that has a 9 through 42 size strings. These are Ernie Ball nickel wound strings, very popular classic electric guitar strings for great rock, pop, and blues sounds. Nowadays, you have many different varieties of materials you can have for your strings as well. You have classic nickel wound strings, and you also have high carbon steel strings like the D'Addario NYXLs. These strings have a high carbon steel core that gives it a much richer, fuller sound and is much more break resistant. A good choice if you want to perhaps invest in a nicer set of strings for your electric guitar. Along with different materials for electric guitar, you can also have different combinations of gauges as well, such as these 10 to 52 set strings for electric guitar. These combine the top strings from a 10-gauge set, which is a common choice for playability, and some thicker bass strings. This is a great choice if you love to shred riffs in drop D, and I would recommend them to any person that wants to have a rich tone when tuning down. In the world of electric guitar strings, you may often come across a set of flat wound strings as well. Now, the material and construction for these strings is slightly different, and they're frequently used in jazz or blues contexts for when you want a darker sound. The outer winding of the string is going to be made of a flat ribbon as opposed to a wind of a steel variety. This is going to give it a smoother feel to the hand, and it's also going to remove much of the brightness of the electric guitar's normal string. Along with the many varieties of common name brands that we carry here in the store, we also carry our own house brand of strings as well, the Portland Music Company electric guitar strings with Moduosity. These are a great value string that you can only get at Portland Music Company for when you're really trying to not spend a lot, but you still want to get a good quality string. In the world of acoustic guitars, there are many different options for materials and sizes, and to go over some of the more common ones, the most frequent question you'll be asked when you're looking at acoustic guitar strings is whether you want a phosphor bronze set or an 80-20 bronze set. These are different alloys of bronze that use different combinations of copper and tin in a result that gives you different varieties of tones and textures from the string, the most common being the amount of brightness in the string. If you prefer a really bright, high-end and kind of bluegrassy sound for your acoustic guitar, I would recommend an 80-20 set. That's the common choice for those types of music. Or if you prefer perhaps a warmer, richer tone in your acoustic guitar, a phosphor bronze set would probably give you a sound that you like a bit better. Along with different varieties of bronze alloys, you also have options such as the Martin Retro strings, which are made out of a nickel Manel alloy, which is very similar in look and texture to an electric guitar string, but meant for acoustic guitar. These are a great choice for when you want to add a different, slightly unconventional sound to your acoustic guitar. I'm quite fond of these strings, and I have these on my acoustic guitar currently. Another option you may be asked while you're at the store is whether you have a preference for a coated or non-coated set of strings. Now, what that is referring to is that nowadays certain manufacturers will apply a different type of coating onto the string that will actually allow you to extend the life of the string, because the coating on the string itself is going to prevent corrosion and rust on the string and extends the life much further than what you typically have on a set of non-coated strings. Probably the most common and classic choice for a coated set of strings are Elixir strings, a brand that a lot of people recognize for a nice rich tone and with the extended life properties that people like from a coated set of strings. On top of the fact that they reduce the amount of corrosion and rust on your guitar string over the course of you playing it, a coated set of strings also has a slightly different feel to it. It's a much smoother feel, and it often can reduce string noise when you're sliding your hand up and down the neck of the guitar. Some people prefer this sound and feel, while others don't. If you're not sure if coated strings are for you, just go ahead and try a set the next time you're at the store, and then you can tell us whether you like it or not. In the world of classical guitars and nylon string guitars, there are also a couple choices to keep in mind. Classical guitar strings also have certain gauges that the strings come in, but they also come in different varieties of tensions, which refer to the strength of the inner core of the nylon string. These are a set of D'Addario Pro Arte nylon strings in a normal tension, which is what is labeled here on the packaging. This is going to be the most common feel and what most people find to be appropriate for classical guitars. Now, some players prefer a harder tension because the resistance of the string gives you a little bit more volume when you're playing. So if you feel like you're comfortable playing a harder string and you might want more volume out of your classical guitar, a set of harder tension strings might be a good choice for you to experiment with. If you've never had to change the strings on your nylon string guitar before, keep in mind that unlike acoustic and electric guitar strings, which have a ball end that attaches to the bridge when you're restringing the guitar, most nylon string guitars you have to tie at the end. It's a fairly simple process, so don't be intimidated. Most nylon strings, such as Pro Artes, are not going to have that ball end, and you're going to have to tie them at the end like I mentioned before. But if you feel intimidated by this task, or you feel like you want a simpler, easier solution, these Martin classical strings that we carry do have a ball end for your convenience, so you can just drop them in at the bottom of your guitar's bridge and string it up in a much quicker and simpler fashion. Now, on top of all the many different varieties of strings that we have here, there are many specialty varieties of strings that we carry as well. To go over one of these, for example, if you have perhaps an older vintage grade guitar that you want to be particularly careful when you're restringing, perhaps a set of Martin Marquis strings would be a good choice for you. These strings are very similar to the classic Martin SP strings that I showed you before, but the end of the strings where the wrapping and the ball of the guitar string would be are actually silk wrapped. This silk wrapping is on the major point of the string that would have contact on your guitar's bridge. And if you want to really reduce the amount of stress on those points and the amount of friction as the guitar string meets the bridge of your guitar, the silk wrapping on these Marquis is a really great choice to extend the life of your vintage grade guitar. We have many other choices that we didn't go over here today, so if you have more questions on strings or you want to try some new strings, come into your local Portland Music Company location, ask one of the staffs there if they can answer some of your tonal questions, or if they have a favorite string that they like to recommend that they use on their instruments. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions.